Thank you, Keith. Adam Blai here, along with my co-host Debbie Georgianni. You're not used to hearing me open our segments, and that's because Deb is going in for eye surgery on January 7th, and we're all praying for her. Things sound very positive. We should have a good outcome with that.
Yep.
But I'm helping out Deb. You're normally the captain, and I always call you my captain. But I'm doing my best.
You're doing great. Yeah.
So, yesterday, just as a little bit of a follow-up, because some people had questions, we had talked about the Epiphany blessing of the threshold, which is an old traditional Catholic blessing of the threshold, with the chalk and the four crosses and CMB and the year that you see in some Catholic homes. We had talked all about that, and you can check out that show on the archives at grnonline.com if you want to see that. We did some follow-up research on it, because one thing that came up was, what if the head of the household that traditionally does that blessing is not Catholic? Well, it seems like our conclusion when we talked yesterday was correct, that as long as they're a baptized Christian, they have faith, they can do that blessing if they're the head of the household. I think Deb's idea of both of that couple, let's say the wife is Catholic and the husband's Protestant, they can both do it together if they wish. And that's, that's also a good kind of just faith and family building exercise to do that together.
I totally agree. Marty and I do it together, and we're both, practicing Catholics. We do it together. We look forward to it. We actually are going to do our blessing of the threshold tomorrow.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So we have a whole plan that we do on the whole weekend, but it starts on the 1st of January for the whole year. What happens if somebody doesn't have blessed chalk and they go into February, March, still bless the home for the year, correct?
Yeah. In my experience, and we've used this blessing a lot in the spiritual warfare context where, there are indicators, whether God has bestowed the requested blessing on the home that we can see because we're dealing with manifestations and unusual stuff. In my experience, it doesn't matter what time of the year you're doing it, as long as you're doing it with good intention, and you would prefer to do it at Epiphany, which is the appropriate time. But if you missed it for some reason, that's okay. Just do it, and then the next Epiphany, start over on that Epiphany.
That's so interesting you just said that, because we always did it before Epiphany, so it should actually be on Epiphany?
Well, there's different traditions, Deb.
Traditions.
It's an ancient blessing that doesn't really have one universal version.
Got it.
There's different versions in the world. So
okay, I just always thought because the year, it reflects the year, so you started on around January 1st. Okay, I get it. That is so fascinating. I love the Epiphany blessing. I hope all of our listeners, do that with their homes and really just experience the many blessings. And it's incredible. But Adam, let me just ask you. Let me just share with our Morning Joy listeners. Tomorrow is our open forum on the spirit world, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. And we're going to be taking questions because, Adam, remember? I'm saying remember because time is flying by. We did a webinar and we did a Spirit World show and several Next Right Things on the Boot Camp Challenge, getting folks ready for 2025. And and you mentioned, do you remember when you said, and don't be discouraged, don't be upset if a couple days after New Year's, you didn't live up to what you said you were going to do? Yeah,
so we did so much prep for this and tried to encourage, and here the reality has set in for certainly a few of us out there, right? We have our ideal goals, we have, high hopes. And what do you do if I missed it, I forgot, it's the end of the day and it's too late, I can't do that, whatever it was that I was trying to do every day, or, I missed Mass, I was trying to do better. So what do you do? Do you give up and say, okay, goals are gone, let's just go back to regular life? No, of course not. So remember, one of the primary things about the walk with Jesus Christ, this Catholic Christian walk that we make, where we avail ourselves of the sacraments, including confession, is when we fall down, we don't just say, oh, well, that's it, I'll just give up on, give up on religion and I messed up. No, of course not. We repent, and Jesus talked about repenting so many times. And as Catholic Christians, we have the beauty of the sacrament that he instituted. You know, when he said to the apostles, those whose sins you forgive are forgiven, and those whose sins you retain are retained. And he gave that power to the apostles and therefore the church. So we are encouraged to dust ourselves off and start walking again, in general, when it comes to sin and the whole Christian walk, right? This walk with Jesus. So one of the things about the resolutions and trying to make them measurable and attainable and make them short term so that you can have that boost of, oh, I did it, you know, I made it 3 days and that was my goal for this week. I did that 3 times this week or whatever it is. If you miss that, today is a new day. And a number of saints have said something similar, you know, with the journey.
St. Teresa of Avila.
Yeah, St. Teresa of Avila is one of them. Like, every day is a new day.
Mm-hmm. Mother Teresa. It goes on and on.
Yeah.
Yeah. John Paul II. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And so, you know, don't give up on yourself too easily. Don't give up on yourself at all, but don't give up on yourself so easily that only a few days into the year you say, oh, it's too hard. You know, I thought it would be easy, but when it comes to actually doing it, you know, it's too much.
Right.
If you need to adjust your goals, that's okay. Maybe you had, you know, your eyes were bigger than your stomach and you ordered too much food and you said, I'm going to do all this stuff in week 1. And then you realize, oh, I've only got time to do a third of that. That's okay. Adjust your goals and get back to having that experience of, oh, I hit my goal, I did it. Because that's going to give you that emotional boost to do it the next week.
Right.
So if you need to adjust the goalpost a little bit, that's all right. You're learning more about yourself and how you operate in life. And then you just start walking again. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. Everything you're saying is just, you know, perfect, I think, for all of us to hear over and over again. And that's why I was saying earlier at the start of the Next Right Thing, you know, Adam, you know, do we really remember, you know, the things that we thought we were going to do for the new year in December? Because quite honestly, we're a couple days in and people are already off and running. They're just off and running. You can see it at the stores. You can see it with the emails coming in. People are getting back and just trying to tackle the new year as fast as they can. And it's just racing. Everything is racing. And I've said this so many times. I said it during Advent. Adam, if you recall what I shared at Advent, slow down, because if you race through life, you're going to miss all those special victories, those small victories, spiritual victories that you really want, and they can help you, and they can give you that added boost for the journey. And I think that sometimes when we go a couple days into the new year, tell me if I'm right on this, Adam. I've experienced it myself, and I know that with the clients that we work with at Stand Tall, which, by the way, if you guys want a life coach, standtalltoday.com. That's our life coaching outreach ministry. I've heard this so many times, Adam. Couple days in, after the New Year's resolutions, they fail. You know, somebody says, I'm not going to eat, you know, a dessert, and they eat dessert, you know, the weekend coming up, you know, which is tomorrow or the next day. And they say, okay, that's it. I'll start. Start in February. Okay, I'll start in March. And they get so discouraged and they find themselves feeling already down. When you're spiritually down, but trust me on this, folks. I've lived this so many years. When you're spiritually down at the beginning of the year and then you go into the tough season of Lent, it's very difficult. You've got to use this time to celebrate these small spiritual victories from January until the start of Lent, so it can build those spiritual muscles and get you strong for the journey as we travel through Lent. So that's why, do not get discouraged about New Year's resolutions. Pick yourself back up, do exactly what St. Teresa of Avila says, you know, begin again and just act like it's New Year's and go for it. What do you say to that, Adam?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, as we've talked about it in the weeks leading up to the new year, to build a new habit, to integrate a new habit into your life, it takes time. It's not something that you do for 2 days and now it's going to be easy and it'll just be part of my life. You know, we're typically talking 4 to 8 weeks or more before it really is just part of your day and it doesn't take a special effort to do it. So it's super important. If you need to adjust the goal, you know, and if it's a required thing like making it to Mass on Sundays, you can't adjust that. You need to do that. But if there are other things like, you know, I want to pray two decades of the Rosary, you know, before I start my day, whatever it might be, if you need to adjust, because building the new habit is this important first step in this beginning of the year. And then that habit can be expanded a little bit. So maybe you pull back to 1 decade of the Rosary, and then, you know, a month later you add a little bit more. That's going to be easier than just making it more prayer than you feel like you can handle right now, and you're pushing hard, and, you know, you're more likely to become discouraged.
Yep.
So,
and don't the demons love when we're in that vulnerable position?
Well, sure. Yeah, they're all about discouragement. In any way, they want to keep us away from God and draw our attention away from God and put it on them, usually in the form of fear. And we don't want to do that. We want to focus on Christ, remember that he has saved us and is providing for us. What are your thoughts? What are the other things that you see people kind of falling into at this point in the year?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. But I have to just tell you, I had such an aha moment there when we talked about discouragement, and you said be encouraged. I love that. That's, you know, always go for that positive. That's what we do in life coaching. So be encouraged and keep going step by step, moment to moment. Celebrate all those things that you have made as an effort to get closer to God. It's so, I love that. Be encouraged. I thought that was excellent what you said, Adam. Okay, so more things that I've seen. People just they're their own worst enemy. You know, they get down on themselves, and it's not necessary. If they just try to put forth a good, like I said, a good effort towards getting closer to God and building the relationship, God comes rushing to us. It's just the way our God works. We remain faithful. We do our best. God is always faithful to us. And be confident in that. Be secure in that. Be hopeful. This is the Jubilee year of hope. So carry that hope. Carry that joy. Carry the peace. And yeah, I've seen a lot of clients come to us, and they are just so hard on themselves. And God's not that. God's not like that. He's not as hard as we are on ourselves sometimes. And it's just, I just want folks to get that sense of real energy and joy as they travel through this year.
Yeah, you know what you just said is so important. There's a core idea in Ignatian spirituality amongst Jesuit priests, and that is to work with people where they are, and the idea that God works with us where we're at. So God doesn't need me to be Padre Pio before he's pleased with, you know, my contribution, my yeses, maybe my little efforts, which, by the way, are always grace anyway. They're ultimately from God. I don't need to be Padre Pio before he's like, okay, you're working pretty well, kid. You know, keep it up. God works with us where we're at. So if we're just getting started in terms of, you know, getting our entire Catholic Christian life in order and operating and firing on all 8 cylinders, so these days it's 4 cylinders, that's okay. Mm-hmm. It's taking the step forward. So, you know, heaven rejoices when you're picking up the rosary in the morning, even if you're only praying a decade of it. If that's never been part of your life before, your guardian angel is thrilled. Mm-hmm. Heaven is thrilled. You're not required to say the rosary by law. You're required to go to Mass on Sundays and holy days of obligation. You're doing an extra thing. Even if it's just a little bit, that's progress. That is a tiny little step in the direction of God. And that's what God wants, is conversion, growth towards God from where we're at right now. So don't beat yourself up and say, well, I'm not Padre Pio, and so God, he's not happy with me. I'm not praying 15 rosaries a day. He's not
Right.
happy with me.
And I failed already. It's the first week of New Year's. I failed. Now it's over. Yeah.
All that is the enemy.
Yep.
That's the kind of thing that the enemy tells us to try to discourage us. So be encouraged about the little baby steps.
Yep. Encouraged. I love it.
As long as we're moving towards God, that's the important thing.
That's got to be our word for this year. Encourage. I love that. That's so cool. I know that the Jubilee year, it's hope, and I think that's wonderful. That we all focus on hope. We need that. That's very important. So words are powerful. They're very powerful.
Oh, yeah.
And how we choose and what we tell ourselves is very powerful. So that's another thing too. Clean up your self-talk and really make it refreshing for your soul rather than, having it really just beat you down. And that's not a good place. That's not what God wants for us. But what's really cool, Adam, we're going to open up the phone lines tomorrow, 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, right on the Spirit World. We're taking phone calls from the start of the show, the entire hour, all about what we shared in December. You guys you've got to go back to the archives if you've forgotten it already, and check it out, the Boot Camp Challenge, and some came to the webinar we did at standtalltoday.com, and we'll be doing some more webinars this year. We're excited about that, and really join us and see if you've already had some spiritual insights, some blessings, the fruit of it so far of the Boot Camp Challenge. Maybe you've had some pitfalls. Maybe things are just not working out. You buddied up with a friend or a sibling or your spouse, and they already dropped off, and you're like, okay, now what do I do? We'll talk about it out on the open forum. What do you say?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and open forum shows, they're often, all the ones I can remember, and we've done a number of them, they've always been great. The providence of God in terms of the questions and things that people bring up when they call in. It's so neat to see those shows unfold because you don't know what's going to happen, right?
Right.
People are calling in from literally all around the world. So it's a neat blessing because you kind of get to see God moving right there in front of you.
Yeah. And Adam, how much, I think we have a few more minutes. I wanted to share, Morning Joy is all about the gifts and the fruits of the Holy Spirit. And we journey together on this road to holiness, on this road to sainthood, right? And it's a journey. We're traveling together. The same thing we do with the spirit world. We're learning and growing together. It's the same thing that I do with Take Two. We're learning and growing together. So that's what I love about Catholic radio. It brings us together, Adam. There's such strength in that. And that's the reason why I believe the demons cannot stand Catholic radio. Because they will try everything with technology to bring us down at key points when we're trying to raise money and do all sorts of things on Catholic radio. They obviously are just they're so frustrated by it because it works. Catholic radio works. It works on the hearts and the minds and the souls of people that listen. Father Thomas Loya says God is sanctifying the airwaves with Catholic radio. I so believe that. He's the host of Light of the East, Father Thomas Loya. We had him on the Spirit World. Wonderful priest, and he's spot on. And I believe, what wouldn't you say, Adam? If everybody just told just one person about Catholic radio, I think that would be a fantastic year we'd have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into the whole story, but they have the enemy has complained about this work on the radio during sessions. So I can tell you, directly, the demons have tried to trash talk the work that we're doing with Catholic radio and discourage me about that work. So I can tell you it's not an armchair conclusion. They definitely hate it. Yeah. And we'll, to wrap up with this, we have about 50 seconds left. The gift that we have through GRN and ultimately from God to catechize and speak to so many people, Deb, is just so staggering.
Yes, I agree.
It's something unique to this generation and the technology that we have. And of course, the church encouraged us to do the new evangelization and use technology. But what a gift GRN gives us to give us these moments to
Absolutely.
share with people.
Absolutely. And GRN has invested a lot to be able to do this, and this is a big deal for everybody that listens, and it's amazing, and we get to celebrate it and journey together. Wow, Adam. Pretty spectacular.
So with that, Keith, we're going to pass it back to you. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of the morning. Joy.